Welcome back to iAskTech. In this video, we are going to build a countdown timer by using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So this is the demo that you can see right now on my screen. It is very simple and very easy. You can see that a timer is running, and we have some interesting features. For example, you can pause the timer by clicking on that. You can start the timer again, and you can also edit the timer. For example, if you want to start from 7, just click on the update, and you can see the timer has started from the 7 minutes. You can edit it again. You can start it from the 40 minutes if you want. So you can see that it is fully dynamic timer that you will build in this video. So let's begin. So let's create a starting file, index.html, and we will add some basic HTML5 code to start with. And here I need in internal styling section to add some basic styles. And also I need a script tag to type my JavaScript code. So here for now I'm going to add some basic hello world code, and I will open it in the browser. So you can see that app is working. Now I am going to add a font to make the timer interesting. So this is a font that I will try to use it. So let's just copy this section and I'm going to paste it here. After that, I need to copy this code to add the font family on the body. Okay, now inside body, we will be using this font. You will see that font has been changed. So I'm going to wrap this into a div, and I'm going to call it ID timer. And now I will add some basic styles to this timer. Font size 55 pixels. Okay. Font weight border. Okay. All right. So instead of hello world, I'm going to add some digits in it to see how it looks like. All right. Now I also want to change the color. Okay. Maybe it should be a little bit darker. All right. Now I want to align it vertically and horizontally in the middle of this body. For that, I'm going to add display flex, align item center. Okay, and I also want to align, I want to justify content in the center. Okay, so now I guess I can increase the font size further. All right. So this is how our counter or timer would look like. So let's start writing the JavaScript code. So first of all, I'm going to create a variable, let timer start minutes. So starting minutes, you can use any starting minutes. I am going to use 5. So whenever timer would start, it would start from the 5 minutes. And now I need the time. So this is the variable that would track the current state of the timer. So right now we have 5. Now I need to convert the 5 minutes into the seconds. For that, we just multiply 5 with 60. With that, you will get the seconds. Now I am going to create the function that is going to run to update this timer after every second. So I'm just calling it timer. You can call it anything else if you want to. So in this, so whenever we call this function, we just need to remove 1 second from the total number of the seconds. So from this variable, it would remove 1 every time you call this function. And we are not going to call this function. It would be called automatically with the help of the set interval function that I will write very soon. So now we need two numbers, one for minutes and second for the second. So let's create a variable. Minutes is equal to, and here I will extract minutes from the time variable. It has all of the remaining seconds. So time divided by 60. This would give me the minutes that are left in these seconds. And now I also need the second section that would be displayed on the right side. For that, I would use this with 60. So, with this, it would give me the remaining number from this calculation. That would be the seconds that we will show on the right side. And after that, I need to get the DOM element that has this content. Document dot get element by ID, and pass the timer as the ID of that element. And now I can replace the inner HTML of this element, and here I would pass the minutes and seconds. Okay, so I am going to remove this one to see how it starts to work. So now I need to call this function. So I would use set interval, and in the interval, I would just pass my function. So it would call my function every time after 1 second. So you can see it has started, but it is looking so strange, and it is looking very bad. The reason is that we have divided time with 60, and it is giving us the number in decimals, in points. So we have to round it by using math.floor. That will give us the correct value that we need to use. So now if you see, the minute part is acting correctly. So next, I also want that if there should be 0 if the minute is less than 10. For example, right now is we have 4 minutes remaining, so that's why it should show 0 4 instead of 4. For that, I'm going to add some conditions. For example, if minutes are less than 10, then I want to add 0. Otherwise, just show the minutes as it is. So this is basically ternary operator that we used. So with the ternary operator, we are saying if minutes are less than 10, then then prepend the zero string on this minutes. Otherwise, just show minutes as it is. So let's see. You can see it has prepended the zero before the minute. That is perfect. And you can see that the timer is working perfectly. So it would keep reducing 1 second every time. So for example, if you wait for 30 seconds, you would see that after 30 seconds, this number would become 3. That's mean 3 minutes would be remaining at that time. So we will make it more interesting. For example, right now we are using hard-coded number from here, but we will provide an input from where user would be able to provide the numbers. For example, if user want to start a timer of 10 minutes, they can just easily go to that input and update the timer. So, okay, you can see that the timer is working correctly so far. It has uh, reduced to 3 minutes. So now I am going to add edit button. Edit. Okay. So if user clicks on the edit button, then it would hide this section and it would show a form to user from where a user would be able to type the minutes that they want to use. Okay. So I'm going to add a function and event on the edit button on click, which should call the edit show edit timer. So I'm going to create another function show edit timer. So as soon as the user clicks on the edit button, it would call this function, and this function would hide the timer element. So okay, and it should also display the timer editor form. And we are going to create this timer editor element now. And by default, this timer editor would stay hidden until we make it visible through this function. So I'm going to add display none by default, so you will not see the form by default. So in this form, I need input, and placeholder would be type the minutes. Okay, so I clicked on the edit button. It has displayed the input. So I'm going to design the input a little bit so that it could look good. So border should be 1 pixel solid, and there should be padding of 10 pixels. And I need these stylings on the input instead of this div. So for that, I would add timer editor space input and add these styles. Okay. For now, I'm going to display it so that I could edit it very quickly. So once the styling is done, then I would make it hidden. So I am going to add margin right, 20 pixels. Okay. And I also need border radius, 4 pixels. Okay. And I also want some width, 400 pixels. Okay. Okay, I guess it is perfect. And now we can make it display none again. All right. Now, if I click on the edit, you will see that the input is here. And I also want to show the update button. So I will add button update. So if user clicks on a update button, then it would start the timer. Or maybe I should name it start. So I also in this I need padding right. Maybe yes. So I want to add padding right, 20 pixels. Okay. So next, as soon as user clicks on the start button, then we should call another function. So before doing that, I want to add some changes here. So whenever we start an interval, we should save that interval somewhere in a variable so that we could clear that interval anytime later. So I'm going to create a variable uh, let interval, and I'm going to create a function start. So this function would start the timer. So I'm going to move it inside of this function, and I will save the response of this function into the interval variable. Okay. So now I need to call this start function whenever document is loaded. So for that, I am going to the body element, and I have on load event. So on that, I would call this start function. So whenever body is loaded, it would start the timer for us. And we also need to create a function stop, and so in order to stop the timer, we just need to clear the interval. So there is a function clear interval, and in that function, you need to pass the reference or response that you got from this function. So this is the interval variable that you just need to pass it. Now, in order to test it, I'm going to add a button stop after the timer. So let's go back to the timer section, and I'm going to add, so along with this, I'm going to add stop, and here I will call the stop function if user clicks on that. So for example, you can see it is running. If I click on the stop, then you will see it is not running anymore and it has stopped. So okay, and I also want to hide this button if user is in the edit mode. So for that, I'm going to add an ID to this button. So by default, the stop button should be visible, but as soon as the user clicks on the edit, then we should hide that button. So for example, this is the function where we display the editor. So in this function, I'm going to get the button, get document dot get element by ID, and I have passed the ID of that button. Now I'm going to add the style.display none. And as soon as we start the interval or timer, we should make that stop button display block. Okay. Now let's see if that is working. So if I click on the stop, it has stopped. But by the way, we should also have a start button if we should display a start button if it has stopped. Okay. So for that, I'm going to move the start button outside of it and I will add it here. And on clicking on it, I would just call the start button and I'm going to name it ID start button. Okay. So right now both buttons are showing, but timer has already started. So as soon as we start the timer, we should make the start button hidden. So for that, just add style.display is equal to none. And as soon as we stop the interval, then we should do the same thing in the reverse. So for example, instead of making this stop button visible, I need to make it invisible. For that, I will make it display none and I will make it display block. Okay, so I have stopped it and you can see we have the start button. And if I click on the start, then it would show the stop button again. And I also need some margin right after the start button. Okay, so you can see that we have start and stop working. When you click on the start, then it resumes the counter again. And if you click on the stop, then it stops the counter. And when you click on the edit, then it should not show the start button. So I'm going to, so here I need to make both buttons hidden whenever we show the time editor. Okay. So if you will notice that if I click on the edit button, both buttons are gone. And also, I think we don't need to show the edit button again. Okay. So in this edit mode, the edit button should not be visible. So I'm just going to, so I also need to add the selector ID on the edit button that would say edit button. And I want to make it display none in the edit mode. So as soon as the user clicks on the edit button, then edit button would be gone. But instead of that, we need to show another button that would say update. So I'm going to add it here and just change it. And I'm going to remove this. And on if user clicks on that, then we should call another function that would say update timer. Okay. So in this, I also need to add an ID to this input timer input. So now, as soon as the user clicks on the update button, I'm going to call another function, and in that function, uh, I would make the stop button visible again, and also I need to show the edit button again as well. And not only that, I also need to update the minutes, these minutes. So for that, I would get the minutes from the input first. So for example, show editor in the update timer, I'm going to get the input. Let input is equal to document dot get element by ID. And in this, I will pass the ID for the input, and now I will get the value. Let new minutes is equal to parse int. We will parse the string from the input into the integer. So input dot value should give us the number. Just to make sure, I want to alert this new minutes value to see if we are getting correct thing or not. So for example, if I click on the edit button and I type this, you can see we are getting the value. Okay. And also I need to hide the update button. Not only that, I also need to hide the timer editor section. For that, I will just paste it here and I will make it invisible by just adding the none. So we know that we have the new minutes, so I can just replace the, I can just replace. By the way, whenever we show the editor, we should immediately we should immediately stop the interval. So I would call the stop function. So as soon as user open the timer editor, it would immediately stop the timer so that it will not run in the background. And now I will replace the this variable with this new value. Okay. And now I also need to reset the time variable, that is the main thing that is tracking the progress of the timer. So here I would just multiply this number with 60 like we did earlier, and here I would like to replace 5 with this one. Okay. So now let's last thing after it is done, we should call the function start. So after we have reconfigured these two variables, we will call the start function, and with the start function, it would start the interval once again, and it would also do some other things that are required to do. So now let's test it. You can see we have the timer running, and we can stop it if we want, and we can resume it if we want. And then we can edit it. For example, here I want to start a timer of 7 minutes. So if I update it, something is wrong happened. So let's see what's going on. I'm going to see the console. There is no error in the console. So let me see. So we have the update timer. Okay. So I guess whenever we call the start function, we should always change the value of the display property for the timer element. The reason is that it was hidden, and when we called the start function, it was not showing anything to us because it was hidden. So we made it visible, and now it should work fine. So let's try. I have clicked on the edit button. I will edit this number. I clicked on the update. You can see that it is working correctly, but we saw a minor glitch. The glitch was that whenever it displayed me the numbers again, it was showing me the older value for a moment, but after that it has updated the counter in the UI. So to fix that, whenever user clicks on the update function, or maybe whenever user calls the start function, we should reset the inner HTML of the timer. So I'm just going to call it, and in the start, I would just reset the inner HTML like this. Okay. So now I'm going to edit this. In this, I will save 9 minutes and see. Okay. You can see 9 minutes are working correctly. So We have 8 minutes on the left and seconds on the right. But there are some glitches, minor glitches that we should improve. For example, when it starts from 0. I mean, there should be two digits instead of one on the right side. So in order to fix that, we would use the same technique that we use to fix the minutes. So here I would say if seconds are less than 10, then concatenate 0 with the seconds. Otherwise, show the seconds as it is. Now you will see that it is working perfectly fine. And I'm going to stop it, edit it, and here I would start a timer of 30 minutes. And let's see how that behaves. Okay, you can see that the timer has started from the 30 minutes. So I think our timer is ready. So I hope that this video is helpful for you. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you don't miss any useful videos in future. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye.